time to get the business news. Let's bring in Yuka Royer. Yuka, good to see you. Let's start with this huge investment summit here in France today.
Well, Emmanuel Macron's flagship Choose France summit was back with the president announcing a record 20 billion euros in fresh investments pledged at the event, beating last year's 15 billion euros. This will add to some 17 billion euros worth of projects already announced. Details of some 20 billion euros worth of projects pledged at an AI summit earlier this year were also presented. The French president vowed to ensure France and Europe are more innovative and competitive as the continent is seeing a wave of job cuts and plant closures amid weak economic growth and fierce competition from Asia.
Clearly, the situation is not the best one today in Europe. Let's be lucid about where we stand. Because of a risk of desynchronization with the rest of the world. And in fact, if you take the past 2 to 3 years, we had to face a fierce competition coming from Southeast Asia and especially China for 2 reasons: level playing field and the loopholes we have on our own regulation, but we increased a lot of constraints and regulations in a lot of sectors.
Well, among the business leaders attending the summit, Anindya Bakrie, chair of the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He's the first Indonesian to be invited to Choose France by the president and is joining us from Versailles. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, the summit comes at a time of uncertainty caused by Donald Trump's tariffs. How difficult is it for businesses right now to plan ahead, and how wary are they about making new investments?
Well, first of all, it is as much a challenge as opportunities, especially for a country like Indonesia, which is the biggest country in Southeast Asia in terms of economy and also population. Something like this opportunity or challenges is what we look in terms of diversifying our market outside China, but also to European market, for example. And number 2, we also believe in increasing trade and co-investments. So for here, when we come to Choose France, this is something that we can think about building an ecosystem, for example, in critical minerals. So one of the things that we spoke to the French government is how we can also invest in France, but at the same time processing our critical minerals, for example, in Indonesia, because France is quite, very much advanced in terms of the technology in processing as well as renewable energy.
So what does France have in return for Indonesia? Why should Indonesia choose France?
Well, first of all, it's a good question. Sometime this year, Indonesia will have an agreement called Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with EU. And we feel that France can be sort of like the navigator for European Union, just like how Indonesia can be also the sort of like navigator for Southeast Asian economies. Now, if we combine between the EU and ASEAN, total, the population will be 1 billion people already. And you can imagine not only it is a good market, but I think it is also complementary. On the one hand, we have a big market in Indonesia. We have critical minerals, renewable energy potentials, but France has a lot of the technology, expertise, and also experience to complement for us as a country to go up the value chain.
Now, Indonesia was threatened with a 32% tariff by Donald Trump last month. Is your country having to make massive adjustments in its trade policy?
Good thing about this is that on the one hand, yes, we have surplus of $18 billion per year with the US. But Indonesia as a country, every month has surplus of $2.5 to $3 billion in general. We even have surplus a little bit with China. So what we're going to do, it looks like the government of Indonesia wants to reallocate the import of oil and gas derivatives from other countries to the US. Therefore, the $18 billion will be balanced. But what's more exciting is that just like EU, the US is also interested in our critical minerals to make sure that the agreement will include something of that nature. In addition, Indonesia has also launched the new sovereign wealth fund with the size of $900 billion AUM. So we can also invest in upstream. So what I'm saying is basically, yes, any tariff will increase inflation. It's not good for both sides. But at the same time, done right, we support the balance, but we can actually do more trades between the two countries.
Do you see a deal coming soon with the United States?
I think the deal, again, this is coming from business sector. The government has to decide how they want to deal with this. But I think on July 8th, 2 months or 1.5 months from now, a deal will be struck. I had a chance to meet some of the U.S. secretaries a couple of days ago, and it looks like the sentiment is good. I cannot say it until it's done, but I think it's looking promising.
Now, more broadly, how does Indonesia position itself in this multipolar world with protectionism also on the rise?
Indonesia is not going to or cannot take side between the East and the West because, for example, the largest trading partner of Indonesia is China with $130 billion. The second largest is actually the US with $40 billion. So all these times, we've always been very much non-aligned in order to ensure that trade and investments happen. But Indonesia is also one of the few countries that China and US can make money in many sectors. Namely, for example, mining. A company like Freeport can make a lot of money. Same thing, company like Kingsat can make a lot of money, for example, in mining on critical minerals. But on the other hand, even in social media, both Instagram and TikTok have their market, and Indonesia is always number one, number two for the companies.
Right. Anindya Bakrie from the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you so much. And that's it from the business desk.